Alright, for today's project we're going to be creating a fork. Here's an example of one I created earlier today. So this is just an example of what your finished product should look like. And we're going to go ahead and get started with a new document. I'm going to title this fork. And the main objective of this lesson, in addition to just practicing drawing, which we haven't done much in class, is to talk about how to model something by using two different views of the object. So we're going to start with a top view, then we're also going to generate a side view of the same object, and then we're going to use the intersect option to then combine the two views. So that's kind of the goal. So we get started on the top, and we're going to start a sketch, and then we'll just go ahead and view from the top and hide the planes by clicking the P key. Now I'm going to create my center line, and since I want my fork to be nice and symmetrical, I'm going to design just half of it, so the right half, and then we'll mirror when we're done all of that on the other side. So we need a center line first to get started. I'm going to use construction geometry. Click on the point of origin and just drag up a vertical line. Alright, I'm done with the line tool for now, so I'm going to escape out of that and then dimension this so I have a total length. I'm going to use 150 millimeters. So I'll place the measurement first and then edit the length to 150. And now we're going to focus on the pointy end of the fork. And I've done this a few times, so a typical fork has 4 points. So the center line is actually going to divide 2 points in half. So there'll be a point here and then a point over here. So there'll be a point, like a point here, point over here, then a point at the other end. So the dividing line actually is in between 2 points. So the distance between the center line and this first point over here is half the distance that it is from this point to the next point. So I'm going to use a number that's easy to use whole numbers with. So that would be, we're going to use 9 millimeters. So I'm going to use the construction geometry again just to create some guidelines. And I want my total length from the center, whoops, click that and then do the line tool, sorry. I want this total to be 9 millimeters, so I'm going to place it here, escape out of the line tool, and then dimension this. It's going to be 9 millimeters. And then I need a point on here that will be an indicator where I need to place that extra point. I have one on the end, but I need one somewhere over here. So I'm just going to use the point tool to place a point. I'm just going to place it roughly right there. Now I need the distance between here and here to be 3, and the distance from here to here to be 6. So I'm going to go in here and dimension this from here to here. It's supposed to be 6. Alright, now I've got enough measurements to start drawing. I'm going to do this kind of freehand. Again, I've done this before, so mine's going to turn out probably better than yours on your first go around. But we're just going to try this. So I'm going to use the line tool for most of this. Most of these lines are pretty straight. And just pick a point here to, this is the middle between 2 points on the fork. And I'm not going to attach anything yet. I'm just going to click here, and I need this point to be horizontal, so it's not a perfect point. If I do this, it's too jagged. It's not going to print very well. So I'm going to go ahead and force it to be a length at the tip. And then I'm going to go diagonally down. I want these to be horizontal of one another. So I'm referencing this point here. It's going to create a horizontal constraint. And then I'm going to go ahead and go up here and reference this. I want these to be horizontally constrained. And I'm going to click over here, horizontal again. See, these reference points are right angles to this angled line. I don't want it to be at an angle. I want it to be horizontal to the drawing plane. So I need to just kind of hunt around until I find that. And then I'm going to click there. So that's the end. The rest of this is going to be the outside edge of my fork. And I'm going to use a different tool for that. So I'm going to escape out of the line tool for now. And now we're going to add some dimensions. So this point I want to be about 1 millimeter. So it's pretty small, but it's not an exact point. So I'm going to click here and dimension this. And then change it to 1, or 1 millimeter. And I want these two to be equal. So I'm going to use a constraint that makes these two equal. So now this one has been shortened to 1 millimeter. And I'm going to now place these where they're supposed to go. So I want the center of this 1 millimeter line to be right there where that point is. Then I want the center of this one there. So I'm going to use the midpoint constraint and click on the line and then where I want that midpoint to be lined up with. So since these are horizontally constrained, it's going to move that one up, but you can see that line's not in the middle. So I'm going to click on this line since I'm still on that constraint, click on this line, and then click on that point to snap it there. So now I have these teeth that are in place, pointy ends. The midpoint here, if I want it to be the same distance, then I could add that measurement there. So I'm going to click here from that point to that point and make this an even 6 millimeters. Alright, so I need one more measurement to lock this in place. I need the length. So right now this is still adjustable. If I grab one of these points and drag it down, it should move all those this point and that point along the center line. So I'm going to go ahead and dimension that. So I want from here to here to be a certain distance. Let's say 35 millimeters. So I can always go back in here and change this value if I need to. So I think everything now is constrained. So it's all black. So it's dimensioned and locked into place. So now we're going to sketch the outside edge of the fork. I'm going to use the spline tool for this, and it's meant to be kind of a freehand tool to create custom curves. So I'm going to start here, place a point coincident to the end point here, and I'm going to zoom out and just kind of freehand this, and I'm purposely avoiding any constraints. I want to be able to adjust this later. So I'm just going to click over here somewhere, click over here. If I get into this area, you'll see there's an implied constraint. I don't want any of that. That's going to lock it in place and I don't want it. So avoid any constraints. So just kind of move around until that constraint disappears and then click there to place another point. Click here. Again, I don't want to have any constraints, so I'm just going to move off of that. Click one more time over here, close to the end, and then click on the end point. And then escape is how you finish a spline. So I'm going to escape out of that. So here's my rough drawing for the outline of the fork. So it doesn't look that great. So I can add some points if I wanted to, I think. Let's go ahead and add a point. See if that allows us to adjust some stuff. Then I'm going to escape out of the point tool, grab this point and see what happens. Yeah. So you'll notice that as you adjust a point on a spline, it moves everything. It's because every curve is kind of dependent on another. So if I wanted this to be more straight to begin with, I'm going to leave a point about right here. I'll be able to stretch this out. Alright, this is just a rough estimate of what I want it to be when it's done. Everything will start to look a little bit more like a fork when you have the other side in place, when we mirror this. That looks pretty good. Alright, so now that we have this in place, we're going to mirror everything on the other side. So we're going to now use the mirror tool, which is this one here. Select a mirror line, which is our center line. And then you can just point and click different lines, or you can make a selection box, select multiple lines. And then I need to do some more here at the tip. So I'm missing this line, I think, and these two lines. So now I have a closed shape because I have both halves that are connected together. So it should be shaded now in this light blue. And now that you can see the total outline, you can make some final adjustments on the outside shape. So if you want some of these points locked into place, you would need to create some geometry. So I'm going to actually create a line here, just a construction geometry line. Oh, I forgot to mirror that point, didn't I? Let me go back. Alright, so I forgot to mirror the point over because this was created after the spline, so it's separate. So when I mirror over, I need to include that. So let's go ahead and click the mirror tool, center line, select all these different lines here. Make sure I include this point this time, and then I need to grab this stuff at the top. Alright, now I've got it. So let's say I wanted to lock in place this point. So I'm going to grab this and make a construction line coincident to the center. And I'm going to drag it over. Let's do horizontal to about right there. Now I wanted these 2 points to be coincident. So I'm going to grab this tool, make sure that this point and this point are coincident. Now to make sure this is locked in place, I have to dimension this line. Let's say an even 15. And I need to dimension the distance from the top. let's make this one 40. Alright, so that's going to hold that in place. So I'm going to escape out of that tool. Now I can adjust this a little bit. Alright, let's say that looks good. It's a little bit wide there, but we're going to call it good. Maybe adjust this down to, say, 13. There we go. Alright, that's a good shape. So now we're done with this view. So when I get out of the sketch and accept it, you can see this is the outline. This is one singular view. Now we need to create the side view. So I'm going to enable my planes again, and I'm going to orbit to determine which plane I want to draw on. So for the side view, I'm going to be sketching on the right view. So I want to select that and then choose to create a new sketch. I'll hide my drawing planes by clicking the P button. And now I'm going to be sketching the side view of a fork. So usually the pointy end curves down, and then it curves back up, and then curves back down as the handle, you get to the end of the handle. So it's kind of like a S shape. So this is going to be using the spline. I'm just going to freehand this. I want this to be attached to the same length, so the beginning point, and I'm just going to imagine the curvature of the fork as it goes down, the points, back up a little bit, past that point, and then down. Let's add a few more points here. Then press escape when you're done. So now I have the option to adjust this, pulls this first curve out. So if I want that to be more straight, I can just extend that down straight with the line. Then this is where the fork would start to turn. It might be helpful to actually find a fork and kind of look at how the fork is designed. If you want to kind of mimic an existing fork. How about that? So this is just a line, has 0 thickness. We need this to be a region that we can extrude. So we need to somehow either trace the outline, or you could use the offset tool, which would make that process a little bit easier. So those are two different ways to get the same result. The offset tool is going to give a specific distance away. So that's this tool here. Click the line that you want to offset and then determine the direction, and then press enter, and then you're going to be setting the distance. So let's say I wanted my fork to be 2 millimeters thick. So now it's a perfect square, which this usually comes to more of a point here. So that's a little bit of an issue. So what I could do is I could either rotate this, or I can try to adjust these points up a little bit. So I do have a constraint here that I would need to get rid of. So let's go ahead and try to do that. Whoops, I just opened something different. So I'm going to now click this, and it looks like I need to get rid of this constraint here. the offset. So let's delete that now that we have the line there. And I'm going to try to move this point up. So it doesn't want to move. So let's show any constraints that are involved here. So I have a coincident to alright, I want to make sure I'm selecting the right thing. So that's actually part of the other sketch. So let's hide that sketch for a moment. No, let's not. Let's leave it there. Let's click this. And it has a coincident, two different coincidents. Let's go ahead and get rid of that one. And get rid of this one. Now I'm going to view from the right again. Should be able to move this now. It's not working. Let me make sure I'm selecting the right thing. There we go. Okay, so it's still offset. This is proving to be a little bit more difficult than I thought. Just hang on a second. We're almost there. So there's still a constraint somewhere in here that these two are dependent. Let's show the constraints are on. I don't see anything that would force them to be the same. Oh, there it is. I remember now. So they're forced to be 2 millimeters apart. That is the constraint that we're having an issue with. So let me get rid of these again. And let's get rid of this 2. And now I should be able to move this. I want it to be a little bit closer. So there's a little thing there, which is the start of the spline. So I'm going to try to mimic that placement, just move it up a little bit. So now it's pointier towards the tip. And then if I wanted to, I could move these points a little bit farther away. Kind of get thicker. Alright, you get the idea. So I need to connect the dots on the ends to create a region. So I need to use the line tool, connect the ends here, pan over to the tip here, and this is actually the end of the line. This is the beginning of the spline. So it's like a control vertex or something. So I want to click there. Now I've closed in my region, and let me see if I can make these vertical to each other. Ooh, that really ruined everything. Let's undo that. So it might be as close as we can get with this. So I was really close to the tip. I wanted these to be exactly lined up, but it's close enough. So we have here in concept a side view. So if you were to flip your fork and view it from the side, it would look like this. And we also have a top view of our fork. If you're viewing perfectly from the top, it would look like this. So the next goal is to get these to be solids so that they can interact with each other. So I'm going to extrude both of these with the extrude tool. And I want to make sure that it is a solid, and it's going to be a new solid. And I'm going to click on it just to see what happens. It's going to extrude in one direction, and I actually want it to extrude in both directions just to make this easier for me. So I want eventually both of these to intersect. So I could extrude in one direction and then extrude again, or there's this handy thing here that you can extrude symmetrically both up and down. So this is a good extrusion. I want to make sure that both of these are overlapping. I'm going to click the check mark to accept it, and then I'm going to hide it so that I can see the other sketch. Now I want to extrude the side view in the same manner. So I'm going to click on the region here. It's already going to give me an arrow and the direction it's going to extrude. It's at a preset of 25, which is actually good. And I want this to also be symmetric. I'm going to click the check mark and then view both parts together. Now what I want to have happen is for there not to be anything sticking out. So I see something that might be over here. So these aren't overlapping. So I need to extrude my second extrusion, my second part, a little bit farther. But top to bottom there's nothing sticking out. So the first part is good to go. The second one I need to modify just slightly. So I'm going to click this extrusion for part 2 and then increase the number, let's just say to 30. And now that's great. It's sticking out on both ends. It's fine if it's too large, like it's sticking out too far, but you don't want anything of that cut off. So what I have now are 2 overlapping parts. So what I want to keep is everywhere that they are touching each other. And anything that's not touching, I want to chisel that away. So I want to keep what's intersecting. So we're going to use a Boolean function between 2 parts. I'm going to select both parts by selecting one, holding the shift key down, selecting the other. I think you can just click both too. Yeah, it adds to the selection. And right click and choose the Boolean option. So here I could union these 2 together to create one part, or subtract, which would leave me with just what's left over. But what I wanted to do is intersect, which will keep just the parts that are touching each other. So I'm going to click on that, and it'll give you a preview of what that would look like if you accept it. So that looks nice. If you're happy with that, that's what you want to do. You're going to click the check mark. And then you're left with your 3-dimensional fork. Now if I wanted to go in and change this, so after viewing it, if I don't like the placement of something, I'm going to view the sketch, and let's say I wanted to change sketch 1, so I'll hide sketch 2 for now. I'll view sketch 1, and let's see if this works. Let's go ahead and adjust this a little bit. Oop. That's the one I can't move. Let's do this here. Move that in. Let's go ahead and adjust this value. Let's make it 12. And I'll go ahead and adjust this thing in a little bit. And let's go ahead and make a drastic change here so we know for sure this works. Something like that. I'm going to accept that, and here you can see it changed my solid. Let's go ahead and hide that so we can see just the solid here. So that is the goal of this project, is to use two different views, top view and a side view, and then create corresponding solids, and then have them overlap and keep the intersecting so that the material that's left over is a combination of the top view and the side view. That's it.